The harvest begins. The deep space scanner hummed quietly in the darkness between stars. Admiral Kresh of the Vorthak Empire studied the holographic display with his 4 yellow eyes, each one focusing on different aspects of the data. His scaled hands moved across the control surface as he analyzed the readings from the small blue world spinning around a young star. "Perfect," he whispered in his native tongue, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the recycled air of his command ship. The planet showed all the signs they looked for: a developing civilization with basic technology, organized societies, and most importantly, a population large enough to provide thousands of workers for the Empire's mining operations. The Vorthak had perfected this process over 3,000 years. Find a world with intelligent life that had not yet developed interstellar travel. Make contact under the pretense of offering guidance and advanced technology. Then, once trust was established, introduce the neural control implants that would turn the entire population into obedient servants. It was clean, efficient, and profitable. Kresh activated the communication array and sent a coded message across space to the Vorthak homeworld. Harvest Site 847 confirmed. Population approximately 7 billion. Recommend immediate deployment of Cultural Integration Fleet. 3 months later, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working late in her laboratory at the SETI Institute in California. The radio telescopes had been picking up strange signals for weeks, patterns that seemed too organized to be natural phenomena. As the lead xenobiologist on the project, Elena had been trying to decode what might be the first evidence of intelligent alien life. The breakthrough came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Elena sat bolt upright in her chair as the computer finished, processing the latest transmission. The signals were not random. They were mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and simple geometric patterns. Someone or something was trying to communicate. Her hands shook as she reached for the phone to call Captain Jake Mitchell, the military liaison assigned to the SETI project. Mitchell was a career soldier who had seen combat in 3 different conflicts, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Captain, you need to get here now," Elena said when he answered. "We have confirmed contact with extraterrestrial intelligence." Within hours, the small SETI facility was swarming with government officials, scientists, and military personnel. Sarah Chen, a communications specialist with a gift for languages, was brought in to help establish meaningful dialogue with the aliens. The team worked around the clock to respond to the signals using similar mathematical patterns. The response came faster than anyone expected. Complex mathematical formulas gave way to simple pictographs, then to what appeared to be a basic language primer. The aliens were teaching the humans how to communicate with them. Admiral Kresh watched the progress, reports with satisfaction. The humans were responding exactly as predicted. Their curiosity and desire for knowledge made them eager to learn from their supposed benefactors. Phase 1 of the integration process was proceeding perfectly. After 2 weeks of communication, the aliens sent a message that changed everything. They identified themselves as the Vorthak, an ancient civilization that had been exploring the galaxy for millennia. They had been watching human development and were impressed by humanity's potential. Now they wanted to make formal contact and offer to share their advanced technology. The message concluded with coordinates for a meeting site just outside Earth's solar system. The Vorthak would send an envoy ship to demonstrate their peaceful intentions and begin the process of bringing humanity into the greater galactic community. Elena stood before the assembled world leaders in an emergency session of the United Nations. The debate had been raging for hours about how to respond to this unprecedented situation. Some countries wanted to send military ships, others insisted on a purely scientific mission. The arguing seemed endless. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena said, her voice cutting through the noise, "we are facing the most important moment in human history. First contact with an alien civilization. They have shown no hostile intentions. In fact, they have been patient and methodical in teaching us how to communicate. I believe we should accept their offer to meet." Captain Mitchell stood beside her, his military uniform a stark contrast to her civilian clothes. "I agree with Dr. Rodriguez, but with conditions. We meet them on our terms, with our ships, and with full defensive capabilities ready if needed." The vote was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would meet the Vorthak. The human delegation consisted of 3 ships. The scientific vessel Discovery carried Elena and her team of xenobiologists. The military cruiser Defiance was commanded by Captain Mitchell with a full crew of Marines and defensive weapons. The communications ship Harmony was equipped with Sarah Chen's advanced translation equipment and diplomatic personnel from 12 different nations. Admiral Kresh met them at the designated coordinates aboard his flagship, the Eternal Harvest. The Vorthak ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of all 3 human vessels combined. But it made no threatening moves. Instead, it opened its docking bays and transmitted an invitation for the human representatives to come aboard. Elena's first sight of Admiral Kresh was both fascinating and unsettling. The Vorthak leader stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scaled skin shifting between green and blue depending on the light. His 4 eyes moved independently, giving him the ability to observe multiple things at once. When he spoke through the translation device, his voice was cultured and sophisticated. "Welcome, humans of Earth," Kresh said with what might have been a smile, though his reptilian features made it difficult to tell. "I am Admiral Kresh, representing the Vorthak Empire. We have traveled far to meet with your species." The formal greeting ceremony took place in a vast chamber aboard the Vorthak ship. Kresh explained that his people had been monitoring human radio transmissions for decades and were impressed by humanity's rapid technological development. The Vorthak wanted to offer humanity a partnership. Advanced technology, clean energy, medical breakthroughs that could eliminate disease and extend human lifespan by centuries. "All we ask in return," Kresh said, his yellow eyes fixed on Elena, "is cultural exchange. We want to learn about human society, your arts, your philosophy, and we want to share our knowledge freely." Sarah Chen noticed something odd during the translation process. There were words in the Vorthak language that did not translate properly, terms that seemed to relate to concepts like cultivation, harvesting, and neural optimization. When she mentioned this to Elena privately, the scientist frowned. "Keep monitoring those untranslated terms," Elena whispered. "Something feels off about this." The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Vorthak offered incredible gifts. Fusion, reactors that could power entire cities with no pollution. Medical nanobots that could cure cancer and repair genetic disorders. Starships that could travel between solar systems in weeks instead of centuries. The only requirement was that humanity accept what the Vorthak called integration counselors. These would be Vorthak citizens who would live on Earth and help humans adapt to their new technology. They would also provide small neural implants that would allow humans to interface directly with Vorthak systems. "Think of them as translators for your minds," Kresh explained. "The implants will allow you to understand our technology intuitively. You will be able to operate our machines as if you had designed them yourselves." Captain Mitchell's military instincts screamed warnings, but the potential benefits seemed overwhelming. The world's governments were putting enormous pressure on the delegation to accept the offer. Clean energy alone could solve climate change. The medical advances could save billions of lives. Elena felt torn between her scientific excitement and a growing sense of unease. Late on the 3rd night, she was reviewing the linguistic data when Sarah Chen burst into her quarters. "Elena, you need to see this," Sarah said, her face pale with fear. "I finally cracked those untranslated terms. Harvesting does not mean what we think it means. It means collecting workers. Neural optimization means mental control, and integration. Counselors translates more accurately as overseers." Elena stared at the data on Sarah's tablet. The Vorthak language contained dozens of references to previous worlds they had integrated, technical specifications for neural control implants, instructions for managing large populations of workers in mining operations. "They're not here to help us," Elena whispered. "They want to turn us into slaves." The 2 women quickly gathered Captain Mitchell and the senior members of their team. In a secure conference room, they shared their discovery. The evidence was overwhelming. The Vorthak were not benevolent guides. They were predators who specialized in enslaving entire civilizations. "We have to warn Earth," Mitchell said grimly. But we can't do it openly. They'll be monitoring our communications. Elena's mind raced. They were trapped aboard the Vorthak ship with no way to send a warning home without being detected. Worse, the formal signing ceremony was scheduled for the next morning. Once humanity accepted the Vorthak offer, the integration counselors would arrive on Earth within days. "There's something else," Sarah said quietly. "I intercepted internal Vorthak communications. They've done this to 47 other worlds. Every single civilization that accepted their offer is now working in their mines. The Vorthak have been building an empire for 3,000 years using slave labor. The team spent the night developing a desperate plan. They could not prevent the ceremony or openly reject the Vorthak offer without triggering an immediate invasion. Instead, they would have to return to Earth and prepare for what was coming in secret." The signing ceremony took place in the same grand chamber where the humans had first met Admiral Kresh. Representatives from every major nation on Earth participated via video link. Elena watched in horror as world leaders enthusiastically accepted the Vorthak partnership. "This is a glorious day for both our species," Kresh declared as the agreement was finalized. "Integration counselors will arrive at Earth within 1 week. The transformation of your world will begin immediately." As the human ships prepared to return to Earth, Elena managed to send a coded message to a small group of scientists and military personnel she trusted completely. The message was hidden within routine technical data about the negotiations. To anyone monitoring, it would look like normal scientific communication. But to those who knew Elena's coding system, the message was clear. They want to make us slaves. Prepare for war. Admiral Kresh watched the human ships depart with satisfaction. In his experience, primitive species always reacted the same way to advanced technology. Their greed and curiosity overrode any survival instincts they might have possessed. Within a month, every human on Earth would have a neural control implant. Within a year, they would be working in Vorthak mines across the galaxy. The Admiral had no way of knowing that he had just made a critical error. He had underestimated the most dangerous characteristic of the human species. Unlike every other civilization the Vorthak had enslaved, humans possessed something that could not be controlled or predicted. They refused to give up. 3 days after returning to Earth, Elena stood in a hidden facility beneath the SETI Institute. Around her, 24 of the most brilliant scientists and skilled military officers on the planet worked frantically to prepare for the coming invasion. They had less than 4 days before the integration counselors arrived. Captain Mitchell coordinated with underground resistance cells being established in every major city. Sarah Chen worked to decode more Vorthak communications and understand their technology. Elena focused on the most important question of all: how do you fight an enemy that can control minds? The answer, when it came to her, was both terrifying and inspiring. You fight with the one thing that cannot be controlled: the human spirit, the stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had carried humanity from caves to the stars in just a few thousand years. As the first Vorthak transport ships appeared in Earth's orbit, Elena smiled grimly. The aliens thought they were harvesting another crop of slaves. They had no idea they were about to encounter the most dangerous species in the galaxy, one that would rather die fighting than live on their knees. The harvest was about to begin, but this time, the hunters were about to become the hunted. When prey becomes predator, the integration counselors arrived on Earth exactly as promised, landing their sleek ships in major cities around the world. To the general population, they appeared as humanity's salvation, advanced beings offering technology that would solve every problem facing the planet. The media called it the Great Awakening. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the celebrations from her hidden bunker beneath the SETI facility. On the screens around her, she could see humans lining up eagerly to receive their neural implants. The Vorthak had made the process seem like a privilege, a gift that would allow humans to interface directly with alien technology and expand their mental capabilities. "How many have we managed to warn?" she asked Captain Mitchell, who was coordinating resistance cells across the globe. "About 12,000 people worldwide," he replied grimly. "Scientists, military personnel, engineers, doctors, people in critical positions who can help when the time comes. But Elena, that's less than 1% of the population. Elena nodded, understanding the impossible odds they faced. The vast majority of humanity would receive the neural control implants willingly. Once activated, those people would become extensions of the Vorthak Empire, their free will suppressed by alien technology. Sarah Chen looked up from her workstation where she had been monitoring Vorthak communications. The first mass activation is scheduled for tomorrow morning. They plan to activate 1 billion implants simultaneously. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. The Vorthak had convinced world governments that the neural implants needed to be activated all at once to create a global network that would revolutionize human communication and cooperation. In reality, the mass activation would turn 1/7 of humanity into obedient servants in a single moment. Elena's small team had spent weeks studying the captured implant technology. The devices were incredibly sophisticated, designed to interface with the brain's neural pathways and override conscious thought. But Elena had discovered something the Vorthak did not expect. Human brains were different from every other species they had enslaved. The pattern recognition centers in human brains are more complex than anything in the Vorthak database, Elena explained to her team. We process information differently. We see connections that other species miss. Most importantly, we have something they've never encountered before. What's that? Mitchell asked. Stubbornness elevated to an art form, Elena said with a bitter smile. Every other species they've enslaved accepted defeat when it became logical to do so. Humans don't think that way. We fight impossible odds because we refuse to accept that they're impossible. The test came sooner than expected. On the morning of the mass activation, Elena was working in her lab when alarms started screaming throughout the facility. Sarah Chen burst through the door, her eyes wide with panic. Elena, something's happening to Dr. Martinez. Dr. Carlos Martinez had been Elena's research partner for 15 years. He had volunteered to receive one of the captured implants so they could study its effects. The plan had been to activate it for just a few minutes while Elena monitored his brain activity. Elena ran to the medical bay where Martinez was strapped to a monitoring table, electrodes attached to his skull. His eyes were open but vacant, staring at nothing. The neural implant at the base of his neck glowed with a soft blue light. Martinez, can you hear me? Elena asked. He turned his head toward her with mechanical precision. When he spoke, his voice was flat and emotionless. I hear you, Dr. Rodriguez. I am ready to serve the Empire. Elena felt sick. The implant had completely overridden Martinez's personality in seconds. This was what would happen to 1 billion humans in just a few hours. But then something unexpected happened. Martinez blinked. His eyes focused on Elena's face, and for just a moment she saw recognition there. Elena, he whispered, his real voice breaking through the electronic control. I'm still here. I'm fighting it. The monitoring equipment went wild. Martinez's brain was showing patterns unlike anything in the Vorthak database. His neural activity was fluctuating rapidly between controlled and free states. The implant was trying to suppress his consciousness, but something in his human brain was resisting. The pattern recognition centers, Elena breathed. They're analyzing the control signals and finding ways around them. Over the next hour, Martinez fought a battle for his own mind. Sometimes the implant won, and he spoke in the flat, emotionless voice of a Vorthak servant. But increasingly, his real personality broke through. His human, stubborn refusal to be controlled was literally reprogramming the alien technology. I can feel how it works now, Martinez said during one of his lucid moments. It's like a cage around my thoughts, but the cage has gaps. Human creativity finds the gaps. Elena realized they had discovered something that would change everything. The neural implants could control humans, but not completely. The human mind was too chaotic, too creative, too stubborn to be perfectly suppressed. Every controlled human would be fighting the implant constantly, and some would break free. The mass activation began at noon, Greenwich Mean Time. Elena watched, in horror as communication networks around the world went silent. 1 billion humans suddenly stopped being themselves and became extensions of the Vorthak Empire. Admiral Kresh stood in his command center aboard the Eternal Harvest, watching the activation with satisfaction. The process had worked perfectly. Earth now had 1 billion obedient servants ready to begin construction of the mining facilities and processing plants that would strip the planet of its resources. But within hours, reports started coming in that troubled him. The newly activated humans were working as programmed, but their efficiency rates were lower than expected. More concerning, some of them were showing erratic behavior patterns. "Sir," reported his chief integration officer, "we're receiving reports of sporadic neural implant failures. Some subjects are experiencing temporary breaks in control protocols." Kresh's 4 eyes narrowed. In 3,000 years of operations, neural implant failure rates had never exceeded 0.01%. How many failures are we seeing? Current estimates suggest approximately 15% of activated subjects are showing resistance patterns. Kresh felt a chill run through his scaled skin. 15% meant 150 million humans were fighting their implants. That was more resistance than the Vorthak had encountered from all 47 previously enslaved species combined. Meanwhile, Elena's resistance network was growing rapidly. The humans who had avoided implantation were making contact with those who were breaking free from control. Dr. Martinez had become invaluable, able to identify other humans who were successfully fighting their implants and teach them techniques for maintaining their freedom. "It's about understanding how the control system works," Martinez explained to a gathering of recently freed humans. "The implant tries to suppress your creativity and independent thought, but human brains are wired differently. We can think in patterns that confuse the control algorithm." Captain Mitchell had been coordinating military responses with the freed humans who retained their positions in various armed forces. "We estimate that about 30% of our military personnel worldwide are either unimplanted or have broken free from control," he reported. "That gives us access to weapons, equipment, and tactical knowledge. But the real breakthrough came from Sarah Chen. She had been working day and night to decode more Vorthak communications and had made a disturbing discovery. "I've accessed their main databases," she announced to Elena's team. "Earth isn't their first stop. They have 47 other worlds where they've done this exact same thing. Billions of enslaved beings working in their mines and factories." Elena stared at the data Sarah had uncovered. Species after species, all reduced to slavery by the same neural control technology. Entire civilizations that had once reached for the stars now serving as mindless workers for the Vorthak Empire. "But Elena," Sarah continued, "I also found something else. Technical specifications for all their control systems, ship designs, military protocols, everything." Elena realized what Sarah was suggesting. "We're not just fighting to free ourselves." "Exactly," Sarah said. "We're fighting to free everyone they've ever enslaved." The human resistance began to change its objectives. Instead of simply trying to survive the Vorthak occupation, they started planning to take the offensive. Elena's scientific teams worked to reverse engineer Vorthak technology. Mitchell's military units prepared for strikes against alien facilities. Sarah's intelligence network mapped every Vorthak operation on Earth and beyond. But the most important, development was happening among the controlled humans themselves. Word was spreading through hidden networks and coded messages about techniques for resisting the neural implants. Humans were teaching other humans how to fight for their own minds. Admiral Kresh watched his perfect operation deteriorate with growing alarm. The failure rate of neural implants had risen to nearly 40%. Worse, the freed humans were actively sabotaging Vorthak operations. Mining facilities were being destroyed. Transport ships were being hacked. Integration counselors were disappearing. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we're detecting organized resistance activities in over 200 human population centers. They appear to have access to our communication protocols and technical specifications." "How is that possible?" Kresh demanded. "Our systems are quantum encrypted with algorithms that took us centuries to develop. Sir, the humans appear to process information differently than our models predicted. They're finding patterns in our encryption that we didn't know existed. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Kresh felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of the unknown. The humans were doing things that should have been impossible. The turning point came 6 months after the initial invasion. Elena's team had successfully reverse-engineered a Vorthak neural control implant and modified it. Instead of suppressing human creativity, the modified implants enhanced it, allowing humans to interface with Vorthak technology while retaining their free will. "We're calling it the Shepherd Protocol," Elena explained to a gathering of resistance leaders from around the world. "Instead of being controlled, we become the controllers. Every modified implant can break the neural links of nearby controlled humans." Captain Mitchell outlined the military applications. "We've identified the main Vorthak command ship in Earth orbit. If we can get close enough, the Shepherd Protocol should be able to free every controlled human simultaneously." The attack came at dawn. Modified human ships, built using reverse-engineered Vorthak technology but improved by human creativity, emerged from hiding places around the globe. They moved with tactics no alien species had ever used, combining military precision with the unpredictable innovation that defined humanity. Admiral Kresh watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled by ships that should have been primitive compared to Vorthak technology. But the humans had taken alien designs and improved them in ways his engineers couldn't understand. "Sir, the human ships are using our own weapons against us, but they've modified them to be more efficient," his tactical officer reported. "Their energy weapons are 23% more powerful than our specifications indicate should be possible." "Sir, they're also using psychological warfare," added his communications officer. "They're broadcasting messages to our crews that are causing some of our personnel to question the ethics of our operations." Elena's voice cut through the Vorthak command frequencies, speaking in perfect Vorthak language. "Admiral Kresh, this is Dr. Elena Rodriguez of Earth. We have a message for you and your empire." Kresh activated his communication array. "Dr. Rodriguez, you cannot win this battle. We have technology far beyond your understanding." "Admiral," Elena replied, "you misunderstood what kind of species you were dealing with. You thought you were harvesting slaves. Instead, you've awakened something the galaxy has never seen before." On the screens around Kresh, he could see human ships systematically freeing the controlled humans throughout his fleet. The Shepherd Protocol was spreading like wildfire, breaking neural control links faster than his engineers could restore them. "What do you want?" Kresh asked, his voice carrying defeat for the first time in centuries. "We want the locations of every world you've enslaved," Elena said. "We want the technical specifications for freeing them. And we want you to understand that humanity is now the protector of species like yours prey upon." Admiral Kresh realized he had no choice. His fleet was completely compromised. His carefully planned harvest had become a disaster that threatened the entire Vorthak Empire. "I will provide the information you request," he said finally. "But you must understand, there are other species in this galaxy far more dangerous than the Vorthak. You may regret making us your enemies." Elena's response chilled him to his scaled core. "Admiral, after what you tried to do to us, we're not worried about making enemies. We're worried about other species who might be suffering under oppression right now." 6 months later, the first human liberation fleet departed Earth's solar system. Their destination was a world called Kepler 442b, where an aquatic species called the Neldrani had been enslaved by the Vorthak for over 1,000 years. The ships carried modified Shepherd Protocol devices designed to work with Neldrani physiology. They also carried a message from humanity to every enslaved species in the galaxy. Help was coming. Admiral Kresh sat in a detention facility on Earth, watching news reports about humanity's expanding liberation operations. In less than a year, they had freed 3 separate worlds and were preparing to strike at the Vorthak homeworld itself. He finally understood what made humans so dangerous. Every other species in the galaxy fought for territory, resources, or survival. Humans were the first species he had encountered that fought for an idea. The idea that no sentient being should be enslaved by another. The Vorthak Empire had tried to harvest humanity for slaves. Instead, they had awakened a species that would spend the next 1,000 years freeing every enslaved world in the galaxy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the human flagship Liberation, watching the Vorthak homeworld grow larger on the main screen. Around her, representatives from 47 different liberated species worked alongside human crew members. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, "We're receiving surrender transmissions from the Vorthak Planetary Defense Force." Elena smiled. It had taken 3 years, but humanity had kept its promise. Every species the Vorthak had enslaved was now free. More importantly, the galaxy had learned that there was a new force that would stand against oppression wherever it was found. "Send a message to all vessels," Elena ordered. "The harvest is over. Today we begin the age of protection." Across the galaxy, species that had been enslaved for millennia looked up at their skies and saw human ships bringing freedom. They learned a new word that day, translated into thousands of languages but meaning the same thing everywhere: hope. The Vorthak had tried to enslave humanity, but they had instead given birth to the galaxy's protectors. The hunters had indeed become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same again.